Now, is there a link between the Hindutva movement and fascism? In 1931, B.S. Munje, who was the president of the Hindu Mahasabha, visited Italy, and he took a tour of its youth militia, the Balilamo. And in his diary, he praises what he saw. He praises this military preparedness. And that he wants to introduce in India. And effectively, sometime later, he founded a military academy in Nasik. But nothing else. He doesn't say, oh, you see, the fascist system is the model that India should follow. Even when he's, wined and dined by the fascists, still he doesn't take that step. Anyway, whatever he did was too late to decide on the orientation of the Hindu movement, which was created earlier. The RSS organization was created in 1925. The Hindu Mahasabha itself was founded in 1922. Here I haven't distinguished between those two. But at any rate, they already existed and they had their inspiration from elsewhere. There was a pro-Italy society in Maharashtra. I'll have to look up the name. I didn't fill that in. Anyway, the point I wanted to make is that as soon as the Second World War started, they broke off the relation because that is what they saw starting to happen was not what they had in mind, was not what they wanted. It must be said, however, until 1938, when fascist Italy ganged up with Nazi Germany, and largely even until 1940, when the war started in right earnest, to link openly with fascist Italy would have been perfectly feasible, would not have been a scandal, because at that time Italy was still one country among many, did not stand apart. Like, for instance, Winston Churchill praised Benito Mussolini. This is an interesting story in itself. Indians mostly know Churchill as a terrible racist. Over here in Belgium, we see Churchill as the great liberator from the Nazi occupation, the man who stood against Nazism when nobody else did. In India, they see him mostly as the man who condoned the Bengal famine and who spoke very, very disparagingly about India, a beastly people with a beastly religion. Anyway, be that as it may, you see, he sympathized with Benito Mussolini. And the reason for that is rather racist. You see, he considered the Italians like an inferior people, as big children, emotional and so on, and so not capable of governing themselves. You see, in the case of Germany, the fact that they had rejected democracy was reprehensible because they were grown-ups like the British. They were capable of governing themselves. But Italians, no. And so what he thought about Italians gives you an idea of what he thought about Indians. You see, Italians needed the strong leader. Indians needed the British. But at any rate, they needed somebody to look over them and, like children in the playground in school, they need to be supervised. So in that sense, he supported Benito Mussolini. He didn't think that for all mankind, democracy is the right formula. You may also like to know a little snippet of knowledge that Subhash Chandra Bose traveled on an Italian passport. You see, he didn't look exactly like a European. To make him pass as European, he was given a false identity as a nobleman from Sicilia, the southernmost part of Italy, where people are a bit darker and so on. So he could pass as a Sicilian nobleman. And so it deserves to be mentioned here that against this pro-Italian tendency, Savarkar supported the British Savarkar, the then president of the Hindu Mahasabha in 1931, only a few days after the outbreak of the Second World War. He committed the influence he had to the British war effort. And so he called on the Hindu youth to take service in the British Indian Army, which millions did. Like, for instance, in the murder conspiracy against Mahatma Gandhi by activists from the Hindu Mahasabha, 3 out of 7 were veterans from the British Indian Army. This is never mentioned, you see. There are so many books and papers that argue for the fascist nature of Hindutva, and so inconvenient facts like this one are often left out. Now, it's not that Savarkar was such a great supporter of Britain, but it was just instrumental, he thought, in the circumstances, that gaining military experience would strengthen the Hindu nation and would, after the war, quickly lead to India's freedom. So for him, Indian freedom was supreme. He was not for the Axis or against